moving on to our next topic, we're going to talk about tariffs and trade tensions. All exciting stuff. Like I said at the beginning, you wake up. I don't really watch the news that often, but when you do, it's like there's always something new going on. It seems like tariffs are mentioned like every day. So let's dig into the question, Aaron. How does equipment financing help small businesses?
Yeah, you know, I feel like this is a topic that kind of keeps coming up. I feel like everybody's expecting like normalcy ever since like the pandemic. Everybody's been waiting for things to kind of get back to normal, and there's just always something else, something new. And I think from a equipment purchasing point of view, I think what's important given the way the global economy is right now, you as a business owner, you really want to think about liquidity, right? Lack of cash is one of the most dangerous things for any business. You never want to be caught in a position where if somebody doesn't pay their contract on time, you're struggling to pay your bills or pay your employees, right? So you don't want to sacrifice all your cash and wing it, right? That's when equipment financing come in to help you get that important equipment. Additionally, you want to be able to act fast, right? Um, with the state of the global economy and all the things that are happening, well, whether it's tariffs or trade or whatever, the unfortunate thing is the equipment is very likely to just continue to get more expensive, and that price point is going to continue to balloon, right? If you see equipment that is available and you want to act fast, equipment financing allows for that, right? We're going to help you be flexible and move quickly on that vital equipment for you. We also want to think about the ways that equipment financing helps you increase your buying power, right? As a business owner, if all you're doing is saving up cash and you're not buying equipment until you have the cash available, again, because equipment's getting more and more expensive, it's going to be harder to reach that goal. Plus, if you're adding a piece of equipment that's going to be driving in revenue, you're just losing out on all that potential revenue as you're waiting to have enough cash on hand to be able to make that purchase. And then additionally, equipment financing allows for purchase of used equipment, right? So if the people that work around in your area regionally, you're friends with people within the trade, and they're trying to move a piece of equipment that they don't have any need for, but you can use equipment financing for that, right? So you're not having to go all over the country or go to a expensive vendor that's not your only option, right? You can actually buy locally and you can finance that used equipment, even if it's sold from a private party.
Perfect. Thanks for those explanations. I'm just going to kind of dig into a couple sections of that, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
I do some of these, what is it, campus to careers at colleges, and everyone's like, equipment financing. I'm like, I'd rather just get a better deal and pay cash. And I'm like, well, if you got $1 million, you go to mom and dad and get $1 million to start up a company. And if you blow $1 million on everything you need, what happens when something else pops up? Like you're kind of, you're out. So I don't think people really understand that liquidity. I mean, the banking crisis a couple of years ago, that was based on a liquidity event.
Yeah.
It's important, and I don't think people understand that as much as they probably should.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think whenever I'm talking to customers, I always try to take the how you manage your home expenses is very different than how you manage business expenses, right? Because when you finance a car, right, for your home, right, that car is not a revenue driver. It is not also bringing in money. It's important and you need that car, right? Because that's how you get to and from places, how you drop your kids at school and stuff like that. But it is purely an expense, right? Whereas when you're financing a piece of equipment, that equipment is driving revenue, right? So there's more factors that are at play for a business than there are for that kind of home economics, right? So you want to be able to kind of think about those differences.
Yeah, I basically just hold up my cell phone and say, do you guys have a monthly payment or do you spend $1,200 at once?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
they're like, oh, we want the money. There you go. There you go, kids. And I want to touch on the new versus used. Are you seeing a shift either direction in regards to the type of new and used equipment that Beacon's financing?
Um, yes and no, just because the as new equipment becomes more expensive, right? That's going to make the used equipment market more expensive as well, because you're going to have more demand within the used equipment market because people aren't wanting to pay those new equipment prices, right? Um, so there's a shift in who's buying what, but I don't think we've seen necessarily less of either. There still are businesses that are buying that new equipment, and for a variety of reasons, right? It might be the kind of contracts that they have with whoever they're partnered with. It might just be the way they prefer to purchase and have those manufacturer warranties in place, right? Or they might see that the benefit of saving a little bit on that used equipment is more beneficial to them, right? So we're seeing the same numbers. It's just kind of who's buying what. That's kind of changing and evolving, and just has been ever since the market started to evolve over the last couple of years.
Sure. And I guess at one point, as residuals for used were almost probably the equal to get something new as it was used. I think that's probably shifted back
Yeah,
to some
absolutely.
normalcy.
Yeah, that's the way a lot of people think about it too, right? So it really does affect like your buying decisions. The one thing I did want to mention is that with when you are looking at used equipment, check with your lender, especially if you have a lender that you work with pretty closely. For us at Beacon Funding, we actually have a solid amount of off-lease equipment. Right, this is equipment that people decided not to exercise their purchase option on, and is now available for sale. Because we touch so many pieces of equipment in our core industries, we'll always have a handful of items available for sale. We have in-house technicians and partner technicians who look through each of these pieces of equipment to make sure they're good and ready for resale, and they're available for quality prices, right? So that website for us is EquipUse.com. That's where we sell all of our off-lease equipment. So if you're currently in the market, it's a good place to check out. You can even go on there and request a piece of equipment. That way, if something becomes available, our asset team will let you know, like, hey, we have this piece of equipment. It's going to be coming in. It's just like what you were looking for.
I'm glad you brought that up because I think a lot of business owners think if they need financing, where do they go? To a bank.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
if you haven't been in business for a certain period of time, and a lot of businesses don't have credit because it's just a personal pull, not a business pull yet because they haven't established that. It's a really frustrating process. I mean, I've experienced it, right? Where you're just like, what do you mean? Like, come on, like, and so you know, don't get discouraged. Reach out to a partner like Beacon Funding and let them point you in the right direction. Um,
Absolutely.
so thank you for bringing that up because dealing with banks can be frustrating.